I found out my wife wasn't wearing her wedding ring, through Instagram. There she was, arms in the air, dancing on some stranger's shoulders, champagne in one hand, no band on the other. The caption: Free Spirit Energy Fire #GirlsNightOut. My name is Mark. I'm 42, live in Des Moines, Iowa, and work as a systems technician for the county utilities department. I've got a 5-year-old son named Noah who thinks dinosaurs are real and broccoli is a scam. I didn't think I'd be raising him on my own this early. But here I am, making mac and cheese at 2 a.m. while his mom tries to resurrect her maternal instincts like nothing ever happened. Julia always had this electric energy about her, blonde waves that caught the sun, honey skin, a mouth that could flash from pout to party in 2 seconds. When we first met, it was magnetic. She was 28, I was 31. I just started making good money, she worked in event planning, and she said boring people made her itch. I should have known. I should have listened when she said, I don't do quiet. But I thought it was youth. That once we settled down, once we had Noah, that need to be seen, to be out, would fade. It didn't. It sharpened. I traded poker nights for bath time. I read Goodnight Moon more than I ever read the news. I leaned in. Fully. Julia leaned out. At first it was gradual. She started going out again with her girls. Once a month became every weekend. Then midweek cocktails. Then networking events that smelled like liquor and lies. Her dresses got shorter. Her nights got longer. I remember one night, around Christmas, Noah asked, "Is mommy scared of the dark?" I blinked. What? She always leaves after bedtime. Maybe she's scared. I said something soft, forgettable. But that question haunted me. Because deep down, I was starting to feel it too, the dread of what I knew but hadn't yet named. And then my real hell had just begun. Julia didn't leave overnight. Not technically. She peeled herself away from us like a sticker, a corner at a time, until there was nothing left but residue. For months, I lied to myself. Told myself she was adjusting. That postpartum had hit her differently. That this was her way of coping, loud nights and louder makeup. I'd watch her walk past the fridge in heels too high for errands and a blouse too sheer for Target, and still, I told myself, she's just trying to feel like herself again. I wanted to believe that. I needed to. Because if I didn't, then I'd have to admit the woman I married, the mother of my child, was evaporating before my eyes. And I was powerless to stop it. We still had moments. Little things. Her sliding into bed smelling like citrus and sweat. The way she kissed Noah's forehead before disappearing again. She'd bring home tiny gifts, a book, a teething ring, drop them on the counter like offerings. But the gesture never reached her eyes. It was like she was playing a role she barely remembered auditioning for. One night, I came home from work to find Noah in his jumper seat, watching the front door. "Did mommy pick you up from daycare?" I asked. He shook his head. "Miss Tanya called you, 'member?" Right. She had. Because Julia forgot. Again. I texted her that night, gently, too gently, "Hey, everything okay?" 3 hours later. "Relax, Mark. I'm just living a little. Don't be weird." I stared at that message so long my screen dimmed. Living a little. As if my life, our life, was a cage she needed to escape. As if bath time and bedtime stories were a punishment she never signed up for. But I still didn't confront her. Not really. Because you don't throw fire on something that already feels like it's smoldering. You pray the wind dies down. You wait for rain. Then came the night of the gala. Julia was planning a black tie fundraiser downtown. She was gone most evenings, handling details. The night of the event, she walked out of the bedroom in a red backless dress that made my throat catch. Hair slicked into waves, lips crimson, perfume spiced with something expensive. "Wow," I said. She twirled half-heartedly. "Too much." I nodded no. But something inside me whispered yes, too much for someone who's not wearing it for you. "You'll be late," I added. She looked at the clock, grabbed her purse, and left without kissing me. Noah toddled out in his pajamas, rubbing his eyes. "Mommy going to a party?" "Yeah, bud. Just for work." He nodded sleepily. "Wish she partied here." "Me too, kid." "Me too." Around midnight, I couldn't sleep. I opened Instagram and searched the event's hashtag. There she was. Smiling wide between two guys in tailored suits. Champagne in hand. One photo showed her with her arm around a tall guy I didn't recognize, hand low on her back, too familiar. In another, she was laughing, her head thrown back, hair messy in a way I hadn't touched in months. Still, I told myself it was just optics. Work culture. PR. Still, I waited up. Lights on. Noah asleep in my lap. She stumbled in at 2:13 a.m. "You're up," she slurred softly. I was worried. "Don't," she said, waving a hand. It was just work. Her heels hit the floor. Her dress landed on the couch. She disappeared into the bathroom, left the faucet running for 20 minutes. When she finally emerged in an oversized t-shirt and no bra, she smelled like sweat and someone else's cologne. I didn't ask. Because I was still pretending this wasn't what it was. She crawled into bed, facing the wall. I stared at the ceiling, wondering when I stopped being her home. The next morning, she made pancakes. Kissed Noah on the cheek. Acted like nothing had happened. And when I asked how the event went, she gave me 3 words: great. Super tiring. That's when it hit me. She wasn't just tired of being a mom. She was tired of pretending to be mine. The first time I knew, it was because of an Uber receipt. Not a perfume trace. Not lipstick on a collar. Just a quiet little email from a rideshare app we shared from our joint account, one I forgot to unlink after she started managing her own finances, for simplicity. 2:42 a.m. pickup, 455, Main Street. Drop off, 1182, Sycamore Lane. Not our address. Not even near her friend's place, the one she claimed to be crashing at after a girls' spa night. Sycamore Lane. I googled it. Nice area. Condos. 1 bedrooms. Close to downtown. 1 block from a music lounge called District 9. I clicked their Instagram. Scroll. Scroll. There she was. Hair up in a messy bun, wearing the same green satin blouse she left our house in the night before. Perched at the bar. Leaning over to talk to someone off frame. Laughing, wine in hand, shoulders bare. The caption. City lights and sins with my favorite energy. Tag at @jlo_Nate. I clicked the tag. His profile was public. DJ. Promoter. Vibes curator. Shirtless photos, club flyers, blurry mirror selfies in bathrooms with gold-tinted lighting. Tattoos up one arm. Early 30s, maybe younger. And in one photo, dated the same week Noah turned 4, Julia was behind him in a booth, sipping a cocktail through a straw, staring right into the lens. No ring. No guilt. Just that gleam I hadn't seen on her face in over a year. I shut the laptop so hard it echoed. That was when the denial ended. For good. But when I tell you I didn't rage, I mean it. I didn't yell. I didn't confront her with screenshots or demand answers. I just sat in the living room that night, looking at our family photos, the framed one from Noah's 2nd birthday at the zoo. Julia had frosting on her nose. Noah was reaching for her face with both hands. I was in the background, smiling like I had everything I ever wanted. That version of us? It was already gone. The next morning, she was humming while packing her gym bag. She'd started hot yoga a few weeks earlier. Always left around 10 a.m., always came back flushed, hair damp. But I noticed something that morning. Her yoga mat was still rolled tight in the trunk of the car. The tags were still on her new mat towel. And she didn't sweat the way her sports bra suggested. I kept my voice even. How was the last session? She blinked. Sweaty. Killer class. I nodded. You ever stretch at home? She shrugged. Why? No reason. She left 20 minutes later. I followed, not close, not obvious. 2 cars behind. She didn't go to the yoga studio. She drove across town, parked behind a red brick building with faded paint and a rusted balcony. Unit 306. And then he came out. Same guy. DJ guy. Low_Nate. He was wearing sweatpants, no shirt. He opened the door, kissed her right there in the doorway. Not fast. Not sneaky. Hands in her hair. Her arms around his waist. She didn't flinch. She didn't look around. She just stepped inside and shut the door. I drove away before I vomited in my own lap. I didn't go home. I parked at Gray's Lake. Sat by the water for over an hour. Watching families walk past, strollers, couples, laughter that made my chest ache. I was watching someone else's version of the life I'd tried to build. When I got home, Noah was still at daycare. I sat on the floor of the hallway, back against the wall, and stared at the ceiling until it blurred. How do you tell your son the woman who carried him vanished for kisses in dark hallways and strangers' beds? How do you not? I didn't eat dinner that night. Julia came home around 5, hair damp, cheeks flushed, wearing leggings I didn't recognize. Yoga was intense, she said. I just nodded. That night, when she fell asleep beside me, like she hadn't just curled into someone else's chest a few hours ago, I stared at the back of her head and tried to remember the last time I touched her without wondering who touched her before me. I used to think betrayal was a moment. A single shatter. But it's not. It's a slow eroding. 1,000 tiny lies whispered into your ear until you start to forget what truth sounds like. The next day, I dropped Noah off at daycare, went back home, and opened her laptop. She never logged out of her email. And there it was. A folder labeled Sunday Setlists. Dozens of emails between her and him, late-night plans, hotel confirmations, pictures of outfits, half-written poems she claimed she was trying for fun. One said, I want to wake up beside you without checking the time. Without pretending I'm still someone's wife. That was the line that finally broke me. Not because it was cruel, but because it was honest. She wasn't pretending anymore. And neither could I. I never followed her inside. Not once. Until that day. It was early April, still cold enough for breath to hang in the air. She said she was going to yoga again. She even sprayed lavender mist on her wrist like she always did before class. But I knew where she was headed. And this time, I needed more than receipts. I needed to see it for myself. I waited 5 minutes after she left. Slid Noah's overnight bag into the car, he was staying at my mom's that night, and followed from a distance, hands sweating on the wheel. Same route. Same brick building. Sycamore Lane. She parked behind his unit and buzzed up like clockwork. He opened the door in joggers and nothing else, like he was expecting her. Maybe he was. She kissed him before she even stepped inside. I parked across the street. Waited. My heart didn't pound. It pulsed slowly, heavy. Like it already knew what was coming. At 11:10 a.m., she pulled the curtain back. The window was cracked open, enough for sound to carry in faint little wisps. They were on the couch. I didn't look away. She was in her sports bra and leggings, her hair up, barefoot. Sitting cross-legged while he rubbed her shoulders, slow and practiced. She tilted her head, smiled, then reached up and pulled his face down to hers. The kiss was soft. Familiar. Her hand slipped behind his neck, her fingers brushing his tattoo like they'd done it 100 times. I heard her laugh, that deep-throated one she used to give me after I made some awful dad joke. He said something I couldn't hear. She answered in a whisper. Then she climbed onto his lap, straddling him, her forehead pressed against his. They didn't rush. They just existed. As if no one else in the world mattered. She kissed his jaw, slow, deliberate. He slid his hands up her back. Her body arched into his like it was answering a question only he knew how to ask. And right there, in that moment, I realized something that hurt more than anything else. She wasn't cheating. She had already left me. Emotionally. Mentally. Spiritually. Everything that made us had already moved into that apartment long before her body ever did. I didn't cry. I wish I could say I did. That I broke down in the car, screamed into the steering wheel, shattered something sacred. But I didn't. I just sat there, still as stone, watching the last piece of my marriage dissolve into someone else's hands. And then, something happened that split me in two. She got off his lap and reached for her bag, pulled out something small. A Polaroid. She showed it to him. He laughed, pulled her back onto the couch, and held it above their heads like they were in high school again. I didn't need to see the photo. I knew what it was. Noah. Her and Noah at the aquarium last fall, the one we took together, the one where he held her cheeks and said, "Mommy, smile with your eyes." She brought that photo here. To him. Used our son like a souvenir in her second life. That's when the nausea hit. Not anger. Not betrayal. But guilt. Because I had let it happen. I let her convince me that things would get better. That, this phase, was normal. That women needed space after having children. That I was too overbearing. Too predictable. Too soft. But none of those were crimes. What she was doing now. That was the crime. By noon, I was driving aimlessly, highways I knew too well, turns I didn't remember making. My phone buzzed around 2 p.m. Julia, heading home early. Yoga cancelled. Should I pick up Ty? I stared at the message. Ty was her guilt meal. Always had been. Massaman curry when she felt sorry for a fight. Sticky rice when she forgot an anniversary. I replied. Sure. Get the extra rice. Noah likes that. She didn't ask where I was. Didn't ask why I wasn't home. Because I don't think she really noticed I was gone. That night, we sat across from each other like strangers, Thai boxes on the counter, Noah babbling about dinosaurs, Julia nodding distractedly. She didn't meet my eyes once. Not until she said, softly, "You're quiet tonight." I looked up. "You tired of me being here?" I asked. She blinked. "What?" "Never mind," I said. I cleared the table. She disappeared into the bathroom. Her phone buzzed on the counter. I glanced. "Nate, still taste you." And then. Same time Thursday. I left the phone where it was. Walked outside into the cold. Stared at the night sky that had once held so much promise. And whispered to myself. I deserve better than this. After that night, something in me cracked open. Not like a shattered window, more like a dam that had been holding back too much for too long. My mind wouldn't stop racing. Every moment with her played on repeat, but distorted. Her laughter sounded fake. Her touches felt staged. Even the memory of our wedding felt like a trick I fell for. I started waking up before my alarm. 4:30. Every day. I'd just lie there, staring at the ceiling fan, listening to the soft rhythm of Noah's breathing through the baby monitor. I'd whisper, "You still have me, buddy." And then, even if she doesn't. Julia, meanwhile, floated through the house like a ghost in yoga pants and caramel lipstick. She smiled when I made coffee. Said, "Thanks," when I handed her her water bottle. It was all surface level, skin-deep kindness, as if we were neighbors who used to be more. She didn't notice I'd stopped sleeping beside her. I started falling asleep on the couch, telling her I didn't want to wake Noah with my snoring. The truth was, I couldn't lay next to her without imagining his hands on her skin. The worst part? She still played the role. Still posted smiling photos of Noah and her at the park. Still tagged me in #FamilyFirst posts like the world hadn't tilted off its axis. To everyone else, we looked like a beautiful, tired, happily growing little family. But inside this house, we were dead behind the eyes. One night, I came home from a late work emergency, a burst pipe in Beaverdale. I walked in around 10:30 p.m. expecting the house to be quiet. It wasn't. Laughter from the back porch. Julia. On speakerphone. Sitting in a hoodie and sipping wine. Her voice light, playful, girlish in a way she hadn't been with me in years. I didn't need to ask who she was talking to. But I listened anyway. "No, stop," she was giggling. "You're such a jerk. I can't wear that to brunch. Mark would freak. Mark would freak." Like I was some clueless footnote in her life. I backed away before she saw me. Climbed the stairs. Tucked Noah in tighter. And then I sat on the edge of his bed and cried for the first time in months. Not because I still loved her. But because I realized he might grow up thinking this is what love looks like, one person doing all the showing up while the other person disappears in plain sight. The next morning, something in me solidified. I walked into the kitchen and watched her pour orange juice. She wore my college hoodie. Her hair was in a messy bun. She looked like someone playing house. Like someone pretending to be a wife just long enough to fool the world. "I'm taking Noah to my mom's this weekend," I said. She glanced over. "Oh. Why?" "Just think he needs some time with Grandma." She nodded. "Cool. I might go to Chicago. Jess invited me for a girls' weekend." I said nothing. Because I already knew it wasn't Jess. It wasn't even Chicago. Saturday came like a storm. I dropped Noah off at my mom's just before noon. She asked if everything was okay, the way moms do when they can smell something sour in the silence. I told her I just needed time to think. That I was tired. She didn't press. Just pulled Noah into her arms and said, "You do what you need to, sweetheart. We're here." By 12:45 p.m., I was back in our kitchen, alone, the house too quiet. Julia was supposed to be packing for her trip with Jess, the imaginary friend she used whenever she needed cover. Instead, she strolled through the front door at 1:30 with iced coffee, fresh lashes, and a tote bag that didn't have a single damn toothbrush or charger inside. No suitcase. No overnight prep. Just a woman dressed to be admired. I was waiting for her at the table. She paused. "You're back." I didn't speak. She walked into the kitchen, avoiding eye contact. Her movements were stiff, performative. "I'll be heading out soon. Jess is picking me up at the corner." I leaned forward and placed the printed screenshots on the table. The Uber receipts. The email exchanges. The candid photos from his DJ page. A still frame from the building's security camera, her and him in the hallway, kissing like teenagers. She stared at the pile. Didn't reach for it. Just froze. Her voice was a whisper. You went through my stuff. Yeah, I said, calm. I did. Long pause. Then, you don't get to violate my privacy. I slammed my hand on the table. The sound cut through the air like a whip. You abandoned this family, Julia. Don't stand there and make this about privacy. You left us while staying in the same house. Her lip trembled. But I could tell it wasn't from guilt. It was from being caught. Mark, she tried, this isn't what it looks like. I laughed. One hard, bitter sound. It never is it? That's the thing about people like you. You lie so often you start believing the air between your words is truth. She stepped forward. I never stopped loving Noah. But you stopped showing up for him, I snapped. You missed his birthday. You ignored his bedtime tears. You let him draw cards you never opened. And now you want to be the mother again. You think you can just waltz back in and rewrite the last year like it was some spiritual gap year? I made mistakes, she said. No, I said. You made choices. She sat down, finally, and her voice cracked. I didn't know how to breathe. I was drowning. I felt like a shadow of myself. I didn't leave to hurt you, I left to find me again. I stood slowly. Then I hope you find her, I said. Because whoever's been living in this house. She doesn't get to call herself a wife or a mother anymore. I slid a manila envelope across the table, custody petition, separation notice, everything my lawyer had prepped the week before. Her hands shook as she opened it. You're really doing this? She whispered. I looked at her, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel anger. Just clarity. No, I said. You already did. The day Julia left for good, she didn't slam a door. She didn't scream or throw things or sob in the driveway. She just zipped up a duffel bag, folded a few sweaters, and avoided my eyes the entire time. I stood at the bottom of the stairs holding Noah, who was clutching his toy T-Rex, the one with the tail chewed off. He didn't cry. He just looked at her with that quiet confusion kids wear when they sense something big but can't name it yet. Are you coming back? He asked. Julia froze mid-step. Her hands clenched the strap of her bag tighter. Her mouth opened, then closed. I'll always love you, she said softly. But love without presence is just noise. She kissed his head and walked out. The silence that followed wasn't loud. It was clean. Pure. Like the air after a thunderstorm. For the first time in over a year, the house felt honest. That night, Noah crawled into my bed, the one that no longer smelled like lavender lies, and fell asleep curled against my chest. I stared at the ceiling, hand resting gently on his back, and whispered, "We're gonna be okay." The next morning, I made pancakes. Burned the first batch. Noah called them lava cakes and asked for more. I laughed, a real laugh. Not the hollow, performative chuckle I'd been faking for months. Life didn't snap back into place overnight. The routines were rough at first, school drop-offs, forgotten field trip forms, laundry that piled like mountains. But each day, something in me began to stitch back together. I deleted her from social media. Unfollowed the curated illusion she projected. The club shots. The inspirational quotes. The "rebuilding me" captions under selfies taken from hotel balconies that faced away from any responsibility. I didn't need to watch her heal. I needed to heal myself. A few months later, I signed the custody agreement. Full physical. Joint legal. She gets Noah every other weekend, when she actually shows up, which isn't often. Sometimes she'll send a gift. A new toy. A video message. But Noah always looks at me afterward, unsure if he should smile. We don't speak much anymore. And when we do, it's short. Logistics. Pickups. Nothing more. The woman I once saw a future with is now just a blurry echo in the background of my son's life. But me? I'm here. Fully. I'm present for the bedtime stories, the scrapes, the dance parties in the kitchen. I show up. Even when I'm tired. Even when I don't have the answers. One evening last fall, after a particularly hard day, Noah climbed onto my lap and looked me in the eye. "Daddy," he said, "I'm glad it's you." Glad what's me? My parent. I smiled. Not because it made everything better. But because it made everything worth it. And now? I'm not just a single dad. I'm a man who stopped waiting to be chosen by someone who already left. I'm a man who picked himself. And every time I pack a lunchbox, every time I wipe away a tear, every time I hear Noah laugh from the back seat, I know this version of our life may not be what I planned. But it's real. And it's ours.